Thanks so much, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council and Community. Human Services Division and Commission are excited to be here this evening. I'm calling Branch Sluter, your Human Services Manager. As I said, we're excited to be with you this evening to provide you with a high-level overview of the division, the work of the Human Services twosome here, and our commission, as well as a look back on 2023 and your investments and impact that Human Services funding made. Your Human Services Division, as I said, is two people. I report to the city manager, and joining me this evening is Anya Zupancic, our Human Services Coordinator, Human Services Commission Chair Fred Swanson, and Vice Chair Maureen Robinson. Next slide, please. Oh, you're there, sorry. You beat me to it. So just a little bit of background. I was hired 6 years ago as your first full-time Human Services Manager. The city made this decision because they had become an entitlement city for community development block grant dollars. They saw a growing population with growing needs. Council had a strong desire to create and attract new partnerships and grant funding. And they really wanted representation at regional tables that addressed community conditions such as homelessness, youth violence, and affordable housing. I've lived in Burien almost all my life. I went K-12 here and in the Highline School District. I graduated Evergreen High School, go Wolverines.
Let's go.
And I've been married for 40 years. My daughter graduated within the Highline School District system. And I graduated UW with a degree in interpersonal and organizational communication. For the last 20 years, I've spent my time working on behalf of institutions, community, youth, families, doing community engagement, and really developing partnerships to provide services where needs surpass funding available. The city hired Anya when outside grant funding that we were receiving, that we went after and we received, and all of the reporting requirements associated with receiving that funding became the work of more than one person. So please welcome Anya Zupancic.
Hi, thanks folks. Really happy to be here. I'm Anya Zupancic. I joined the city in October 2022. My background is far less local and far less impressive than Colleen's. I moved to Washington about 6 years ago for the RAIN and for the grad programs at UW. Go Huskies. I have a master's degree from the University of Washington. And then I worked in a variety of government and social service adjacent nonprofits and agencies, including the National Association of Counties and the Rainier Valley Food Bank, doing fundraising, event planning, and general development work. Before coming to the city, I've been here for 1.5 years, and it's been a great adventure. And I'll let Fred and Maureen introduce themselves because they're far more interesting than I.
Thanks, Anya. So I'm Fred Swanson. I'm the chair of the commission. And I moved to Washington in 2001 to lead a human services agency in Seattle, where I was for 20 years. And then left there 2 years ago and now run an organization here in Burien. I run the Highline Schools Foundation, supporting families and folks in the school district. I have 3 kids that go to Highline Public Schools. One graduated last year, and he's now at Pacific Lutheran, and 2 more that are still in the district.
My name is Maureen Robinson. I'm the vice chair. I've been a resident of Burien for over a decade now. And I have worked and volunteered with numerous human services agencies for about the last 30 years. I'm a vice president of a proudly minority-owned company, small conglomerate of companies with about 120 employees in the Des Moines and Burien areas.
Thanks, Maureen. Thanks, Fred. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah, next slide. Sorry. So in 2023, we were asked to assist the consultant for the major comprehensive plan update with the creation of the city's first human services element, which we're really excited about. The vision statement and basic operational premise of this element is on your screen, and it really represents our division's work. And that is that the city's role in human services is to support, fund, and advocate for human service agencies and programs working to better the lives of our residents and their families. The commission reviewed and helped assist with the creation of that vision statement, and it's in the draft at this point within the new comprehensive plan update. These efforts, with particular emphasis on initiatives that are responsive to and accessible by communities who have faced significant barriers, are really essential to the growth and vitality of our city. And as all of us and the rest of the commission, we are proud to be part of and serve a city that values investing in this mission. Next slide, please. So we recognize that we have not been here to really give a full new council members an orientation, or also really existing council to talk about what the division does. When I first got here, there wasn't really a work plan. That work plan had to be created. And so we, again, want to be able to provide you with a bit of an overview of what the life in human services kind of looks like. This slide provides you with a snapshot of the 3 buckets our work tends to fall within. As human service planners, we assess and anticipate community needs and develop and suggest appropriate policy and program responses, not only locally, but regionally. We work collaboratively with our counterparts in the North and the Northeast and in South King County. And we meet monthly with our counterparts, human service planners in the other South County cities. As a convener, we spend time getting out in our community to meet with faith-based groups, community groups. We visit agencies. We connect with King County and the state for funding. We assist with city community engagement efforts. We attend community meetings. We advocate for new partnerships and really try to focus on the multiple needs within our community. As you know, there are many intersecting needs within the city of Burien that our residents are facing. We provide information and referral to residents in need, and we staff our Human Services Commission. As funders, we participate in the 16-city online common application funding cycle known as Share One App every 2 years, resulting in ensuring that a continuum of services meet a breadth of needs in our community and for our residents. We steward these funds and work to ensure that our investments have the most impact possible and that they leverage additional funds for our agencies and that they leverage outcomes in addition to those other fund sources. Next slide. So when we think about human services, it's really important to note that our needs are not unique to Burien. Many of these community conditions are regional and even statewide and national. These conditions in which people live, work, learn, grow, and play really impact health and their well-being. And these are actually determinants of equity, also known as social determinants of health. This tree really shows that the roots are all intersecting when we think about a person and their needs. For example, to be truly healthy, one not only needs high quality health care, they also need access to high quality childcare and schools and livable wage and affordable housing. They need safe and active transportation options and places to play, and they need access to healthy, culturally relevant food. So all of those things play into when we think about our human services delivery system and why we fund across a broad breadth of needs, if you will. City leaders and staff play a pivotal role by setting local policy, advocating at the state and federal levels for governments for resources on our behalf, as well as approving the allocation of Burien's general and community development block grant funds to these much needed services. Next slide.
So really quickly, we actually want to thank Burke Consulting for helping us put this graphic together. You'll see this again when you start to review the comprehensive plan. But as we met with Burke Consulting and started to put together the human services element outside of the vision statement, we really wanted a way to illustrate the work that we're already doing and to illustrate how and why we fund. So Burke helped us put together this really excellent graphic that shows the human services continuum. To improve our community conditions and to make a positive impact on the social determinants of health, the city makes strategic investments in and builds partnerships around meeting the needs of individuals along this continuum. This is a balance of work to address the immediate crisis needs while also making investments in upstream strategies, in programs that build resilience, and in programs that promote self-actualization services. So you'll see this graphic again in the comprehensive plan. Next slide. So every year and every other year, every division's budget comes under high-level council discussion as we talk about the biennial and the mid-biennial budget discussions. We know that it's only Q1, but those discussions are coming up right around the corner. I know you'll hear from Eric and Caitlin and the finance team a bunch this year. So with that in mind, we just wanted to give an additional look into what's actually in the human services budget and what those numbers actually entail. So outside of personnel costs for Colleen and myself, the council approved and allocated budget areas include our $889 per capita human services general fund allocation, annual costs for severe weather shelter services, and our membership and House Bill 1406 fund contributions to our SCIP interlocal agreement, which you just got a presentation on a couple weeks ago from Claire at SCIP. But as you can see on this slide, the bulk of the division's funding is actually one-time or pass-through funding that's awarded through grants or other allocations, including pandemic relief funding. We'll touch briefly on the community development block grant allocations and ARPA allocations in some upcoming slides, but also wanted to highlight that in the division, we've received 2 federal grants from offices within the United States Department of Justice for various youth services. And we also manage the funding and relationships for our incredible mental health professional co-responders that are within BPD and the fire department. Through all of our fund sources, as well as through the support that we offer Burien Police Department in managing their federal justice assistance grant funding, our team of 2 oversees the management of over 70 contracts. We have no shortage of things to do, but luckily we don't do any of this alone. We work very closely, as Colleen said, with our regional counterparts throughout the Northeast and South King County, as well as our partners at the county and federal levels to maintain compliance with regulations and reporting needs. We also deeply appreciate the work of our city's ARPA consultant, Steve, who's answered many, many questions about our enhanced public safety initiative and our community needs investment project. Next slide. So this is a slide you've seen before and a slide you'll see again where we talk about the city's community development block grant allocation. As a reminder, the city of Burien is a joint agreement city with the King County Development Block Grant or CDBG consortium. Burien's 2023 CDBG entitlement was $469,747. The funding that was available after King County's contractual set-asides for the King County Housing Repair Program and the Housing Stability Fund and administration costs was $275,096. The slide illustrates the funding formula and allocations for the 3 project areas for 2023. Funding for planning and administration costs and the human services contract are at the maximum amount allowable due to federal caps or allocation caps. And then we also allocate funds for 1 capital project. For 2023, the funds went towards the acquisition of Lakeview Park. We are in the process of dotting the I's and crossing the T's on that contract. We're really excited about. But other recent Burien CDBG capital project allocations include the community center HVAC renovation. We were able to contribute $173,889, and the Lake Burien School Memorial Park ADA Trail Project, where we were able to contribute $229,880. The 2024 projects that you see on there on the slide were approved by the City Council on September 25th of last year. We anticipate that the allocations listed will be close to the amounts listed above, but we won't know for sure until the final contracts come through in the summer. Next slide. Also not a new slide. We just wanted to revisit the city's or the Human Services Division's ARPA funding and pandemic relief funding allocations. This slide was previously shared with council at the December 4th, 2023 meeting. So we won't go into a ton of detail. Just a reminder that the Human Services Division manages our ARPA funded enhanced public safety initiative programs, as well as overseeing the administration of $2.9 million in recaptured revenue. The most important and exciting update since the time that we talked to you about this last is that we have finalized contracts with 2 agencies for the Neighborhood Cleanliness Fund allocation. The potential uses of these funds were discussed at length with our division, as well as economic development, public works, parks, and the police departments. Through these meetings, it was determined that the funds should be used to support ongoing and unmet maintenance needs outlined by the Parks and Public Works departments, while also supporting workforce development for individuals in need of job assistance. We're really excited to be supporting the expansion of the Team Clean Sweep program in the downtown core, as well as bringing in a new partner in Weld, Seattle, who will be working to support Parks and Public Works maintenance needs starting April 1st. Next slide.
Sure. Yeah, we can take your
Is
question.
it okay if we ask a question?
Absolutely, yeah,
So Councilmember Mata has a question.
yes.
So I was just wondering on relationship with the African Community Housing Development.
Yes.
I don't know if they're in Burien, that would be one. And I don't know if they operate regionally. And then let's see, most of them, I know they're in our community. There's the African Community Housing Development there again. And then the one that I hadn't heard of, Empowerment Initiative, and now that's through South. We've worked with them, New Futures as well. What about this other one,
Se Potential.
Potental? Are they from Burien as well?
No, the very few agencies that we fund actually operate offices in Burien.
However,
But-
their services are present
Yeah.
here in Burien.
Well, I would say
Because-
that I know all of them except for
Yeah.
the African Community Housing Development, but I haven't heard of.
ACH.
And then that other one, so I was just.
Their offices are located in SeaTac, but they work throughout South King County. At least I know they work in South King County. I'm sure they're a much larger organization. We've actually funded them through our general fund and through this opportunity as well. Their services are well utilized.
But now I'm interested too. What is
Yeah.
the SOAR program?
Oh, yeah, it's a new program offered by Se Potential. It's a youth mentorship and empowerment program for folks or for at-risk youth. It's a new program. We haven't had the opportunity to fund them before, but they work with a lot of our other regional youth services in the enhanced youth service area. They work with our partners in Lincoln and our partners with the YMCA Social Impact Center. So we're excited to bring their specific programming here.
So are
And
they
they're-
operated, I just, have they operated here? So are they a new 501c3? Because, you know, if I look at some of these, I mean, Southwest Youth and Family, I remember them with the New Futures, likewise, they do intervention. When I look at, Latino Civic Alliance with the Jaguar and Urban Arts, I've seen their murals, but I was just wondering, what's gonna be their mission? What do they do? Like, I've never heard of them.
Yeah, so Se is recognized by, as part of the collective that is being funded, that are by and for organizations serving youth of color that are criminally justice involved, including, and they're partnering with folks like Alive and Free, Choose 180, Progress Pushers, and all looking, they partner with our Brave program as well, all looking at trying at various points in time along the continuum of criminally justice involved youth, from a preventive side of things, from an intervention side of things, with the goal of getting young people into programs and case management so that that pathway to prison is stopped.
And I appreciate you taking questions in the middle, and I appreciate Councilmember Mata opening that up, because this is a lot to look
It
at
is a
and
lot
to
to look
remember
at.
to the end. But I remember last year that the New Futures program at Southwest Youth and Family was in jeopardy over time. Is that still the case? Is it kind of through 2024, or does it have a longer survival time now?
Yeah, it's currently through 2024 with talks underway with the organization and the management staff over there. They also are in a current executive director search. I'm sitting on their team as they're looking for a new executive director who will, once hired, that will be one of the key things on their list to be doing is to get out to the sites, to meet the management groups, to understand if there are challenges with their arrangements and what can be done. We continue to be in contact as well, but so far right now, we have assurances through 2024.
I just wanted to say I would be, and I can only speak for myself, very interested if there are updates on that to hear them and to know if there are actions council might be able to take.
Yes. Yeah.
I have another question now. So it says designated human service, in addition to the enhanced public safety initiative,
Correct.
3 program components. So is that money, just because I'm a little bit confused by the wording there. So is that money for the enhanced public safety initiative not included in the 2.9 million, or it is included in the 2.9 million?
It is not included. Human Services was allocated 2.9 million in revenue recapture. That's what's shown here.
Right.
The Enhanced Public Safety Initiative is separate and it's a different chunk of funding.
And can you remind me how much that is in total for the enhanced public safety?
No.
Okay.
I could get back to you. Sorry.
I appreciate the honesty.
It's a big number. It's really
Yeah.
large. Sorry, that's not a great.
That was
answer.
funny. No, that's great.
No, our finance director would be able to give you the full amount. I can tell you it's the 3 contracts. It was the contract we held with Reach for the neighborhood care coordinator.
Right.
It's the mental health professional that rides with our fire department
Okay.
and our storefront resource officer. I could do some mental math. I know that it's probably close to 2 million.
I just want to be clear about this allocation of $2.9 million though, because I think when we're talking about everything that the city of Burien is doing in our human services landscape and in our social service landscape, I think our neighbors and folks who are asking that question, what is Burien? We have $2.9 million that we're allocating to our human services
Of one-time funding.
ecosystem, right? Of one-time money, but
Yeah.
that's all because of ARPA,
Absolutely.
which is a huge
Which
deal.
is huge. Yep.
And I know that there are other cities and sort of the city organizations are arguing for the federal government to do this again. And I'm all for that because this is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that. I think whatever we can do to kind of encourage the federal government, the state government to invest in something like this again, I think we should just be at the forefront of that. Any other questions?
Yeah, and
While
I'll
we're
just, I'll just remind you too, that prior to these funds, you had CARES funds that we managed
Mhm.
that went primarily to food and rent assistance during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and those funds or those needs remain for people. Not everybody has recovered. And so, yeah, that advocacy work that you all do is super important.
Now I have another question based off that. So is this $150,000 to Catholic Community Services, is that rental emergency assistance?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. And then 100,000 for eviction prevention. Is the 125,000 to YWCA also rent stability? Is that what that?
That's mostly what it's supporting. It'll also support some personnel costs and whatnot in their contract, but everything that was funded under our housing stability bucket there primarily supports rental assistance, utility assistance, eviction prevention, et cetera.
Okay. So in total, it's about $600,000 in the housing stability.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions while we're paused here? All right, let's keep going then. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. You can go to the next slide.
So in addition to the roles we just talked about of planner, convener, and funder, we also monitor our agencies, everyone that we fund. We monitor over a 3-year period, either in partnership with our consortium of 16 cities, so that we're not all calling on these agencies all the time. We upload those monitoring reports to Share One, so that all cities have access to them. And a monitoring typically consists of making sure that their books are in order, their record keeping is order, how they actually bring clients through the doors, how the paperwork that they use, the processes that they use, so that we can actually have eyes on the organization and the work that they're doing. We also obviously monitor our grants and the outcomes that they deliver. And we work on behalf, as I said, of the city and regional and local partnership building. But in addition to that, you'll also find us providing information, referral, and advocacy to residents who call or walk in to City Hall. On average, the direct service provided is approximately about 25 contacts a month. This work very often involves more than one follow-up meeting to strategize and coordinate social services, our response efforts with multiple city departments and/or service providers. And you can see by this slide that the direct service efforts that we provide cut across the breadth of needs in our community. Next slide. So, given the fact, just as the mayor alluded to, needs surpass funding available, its partnerships are really vital as they create pathways for innovation. They create pathways for economy of scale. They also improve the coordination of our services and facilitate alignment with our strategic investments. We have a variety of initiatives to align partners on this slide, but to just highlight a few. When I first got here, there was a lack of coordination of services. And so we really looked at some of the key initiatives out there and felt that the framework for strengthening families, which uses a protective factor approach that centers children, young adults, and families, folks in needs, is really a great guiding framework. When I was first hired, shortly, I would guess probably within the first 3 months of being hired, we lost 2 young women to murder over at the alcove, and all attention turned to that work and engaging community and young people around what it was that was needed. And that was really what resulted was a high request for New Futures to return to the alcove. And Chief Bowe and I facilitated that to occur. Out of that came really this enhanced youth services approach, and that is where our partners include the Regional Gun Violence Initiative, Safe Futures, Pro Se Potential, Choose 180, Progress Pushers, Link, Alive and Free, and Brave. And now adding in the Jaguar program with LCA. Multiple fund sources support these organizations and these efforts to address the prevention and intervention efforts needed to disrupt the pathway to gang and group violence. And our goal is to coordinate that work on behalf of Burien and make sure that it's as seamless as possible for youth and families to access the services that they need.
We recognize that when we talk about affordable housing, that a lot of the times it's a community development discussion, but there's absolutely a human services piece in affordable housing work. We work on that with our counterparts that are part of SCIP, and our allocation here as a city of 1406 funds brings SCIP and creative initiatives like the housing demonstration program bring us closer to building needed affordable housing in our community. And then when we talk about workforce development, we had the opportunity with some of our CD3 funding that we received to invest really heavily in workforce development programs here within the city for both youth and adults. Unfortunately, it was one-time funding, but we saw some really incredible work come out of the agencies that we were funded, and we were able to put a little bit more one-time funding into workforce development programs with our community needs investment project programs that we funded. We continue to discuss creative and collaborative ways to strengthen the workforce development commitment with our regional counterparts. Next slide.
So your human services staff are also working diligently to be where discussions and decisions are made that directly impact South King County, our city efforts, and most importantly, our residents. It's critical to be involved and advocate for resources and effective plans and policies. These efforts occur in many different venues, as you can see on this slide, including connecting with our lobbyists on legislative opportunities that intersect with human services. A few efforts to highlight include participating in the countywide subregional human services collaborative sponsored by the exec's office. We participate in South King Housing and Homelessness Partners staff work group, as well as the elected work group. We participate in the newly formed King County Immigrant and Refugee Task Force and Intergovernmental Task Force on Asylum Seekers, given the challenges that are happening in our sister city, Tukwila. We participate with, as I said earlier, with the North, the Northeast, and South King County Human Service Planners to really work collaboratively on a funding collaborative and on policies and practices that really assist agencies to be as successful as possible. We participate with King County Regional Homelessness Authority, South King, and particularly in the South King County Subregional Implementation Work Group, just to name a few. Next slide.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the commission. The Human Services Commission consists of 7 community members who each bring a diverse set of backgrounds and experience. So Marin and I are here. We have 2 other commission members with us tonight. If you want to raise your hand, you're behind the podium, so I can't see it, but I know Mike and Carol are over there. And Marie's here too.
Marie, our new member.
Oh, welcome. Who I have not met yet, so welcome. Commissioners connect with the community to identify current and emerging needs and encourage a systems approach with coordinated responses to address those needs. Every 2 years, the commission brings forth the recommended priorities for the council approval, reads and scores applications from nonprofits requesting funding, and makes their final recommendations to the council based on the approved priorities, a competitive RFP process, and programs and services that meet the basic needs of the most vulnerable people in our community, including families and individuals with low income, children, domestic violence, homeless, seniors, and people with disabilities. Next slide. As a reminder, these are the funding priorities that council approved for the 2023-2024 Human Services General Fund and the CDBG request for proposal. The commission spent approximately 30 hours each over a couple of months to read and score 60 eligible applications and recommended funding for 37 programs. The commission uses an equity and social justice lens across all priorities. That means we look at folks who face the greatest barriers to accessing services and focus on those needs. If you look at the upper right corner of each priority box, you will see the percentage of the total programs awarded that fall into each category. Note that the funding amount for each priority is not predetermined. When agencies apply, they are required to describe what approved priority area they support. The commission works hard to ensure that a broad continuum of services to reach a breadth of needs are funded. Next slide. We take the stewardship of public dollars very seriously. Our funding assists agencies in accessing additional fund sources to reach more of our residents. Human Services staff and commission invest a lot of time and efforts to leverage funds from outside agencies in order to make more effective programs in Burien. Human Services staff also seek partnerships with public and private entities with common goals to ensure that Burien residents receive the help they need to participate fully in a healthy, vibrant, and inclusive community. Next slide. The commission uses results-based accountability as a disciplined way of thinking and taking action to improve the lives of the community we serve and live in. It starts with the ends and works backwards towards the means to get the greatest impact. The 16 City Funding Collaborative also uses results-based accountability in asking agencies to identify the following to get at the most important outcomes. How much did the agency do? We receive this information from agencies who report quarterly on their service units or outputs, which is illustrated in attachment A in your packet. The second question, how well did they do it? So we look for best practices and cultural relevance in program quality and delivery. And finally, we ask the question, are residents better off? Agencies provide data that demonstrates how they improve the lives of the residents they work with. There's a really nice infographic as attachment B as well in your packet, providing a snapshot of those achievements.
Thanks, Heather. We can go to the next slide. Sorry, I keep hitting the mic. Okay, so the community's wide range of needs necessitate that the city invest in a broad range of human services, and demand for human services in Burien remains high. The grants that we provide through our general fund are small, with an average award being just around $13,000 annually to an agency. These funds support just a fraction of the work that agencies do. Agencies typically provide a great deal more service than they are contracted to, as you can see in your attachments. It's really important to note, though, that these attachments provided show how many residents access programs that Burien contributes funding to, and that we do not fully fund these programs. As we've mentioned, agencies leverage our funds into additional income that supports our residents. The ability to show government and community support greatly benefits agencies when they're seeking foundational or community support. So even though our grants are small, they help agencies leverage additional funding. So all that said, our investment of $508,000 does not fully fund the services that benefited over 9,000 residents here. We also want to highlight that every single human services contract that we hold includes the annual tracking of demographics and outcome measures. We know that evaluation and measurement are often costly and time consuming. And it's also important to recognize that there are often larger factors that contribute to outcome performance that are outside of an agency's control, including factors such as the availability of housing or hiring trends. All that said, though, 2023 was an incredible year for our agencies. 97% of our programs that we contracted met or exceeded their service units for the city in 2023. And 95% of programs met their combined projected outcome measures in 2023. We are incredibly proud of the work that agencies do in our community. Next slide. I know that we've thrown a lot of information at you, and we've talked about a lot of agencies, and we hold a lot of contracts, and we do a lot of things. So we want to take a second to just really briefly highlight a couple of the programs that were funded through our general fund in 2023 and just the excellent work that they did. We want to specifically call out the St. Vincent de Paul Central Rendu program. In the 23-24 funding cycle, they actually received double the funding that they had in previous years and still just absolutely exceeded their service unit goals, which is very impressive. The Central Rendu centers provided ESL classes, general education classes, financial literacy support, language learning support, parenting workshops, and they served 118 Burien residents in 2023. On top of that, they absolutely smashed, so give me a second, they smashed their outcome goals with clients completing education classes and everyone progressing on case management plans.
Go ahead and finish this slide and we'll take questions.
Okay, sorry. We want to highlight Girls Inc. of the Pacific Northwest and their Girl Groups program. They are a new program to funding in Burien for 2023, and we were thrilled to have them. They operate out of the Shorewood Elementary School and work to build up social emotional learning skills and self-confidence in the youth in our community. Really adorably, they were also noted in a King 5 article a couple weeks ago that talked to a third grade class at Shorewood about women in STEM for Women's History Month. And I just want to read the quote. It says, one of the young girls said she's currently enrolled in Girls Inc. PNW, an after-school program that teaches about female empowerment. She said, I want to try to be a scientist so that I can help the population of girl scientists. Maybe it can help inspire other young girls to think, wow, girls and boys can be scientists. So it's really great. We're really excited to see them funded this year, and we look forward to how they do in 2024. And then we've talked a little bit about the New Futures programming already, but we wanted to highlight them specifically because they receive general fund and community development block grant funding from us. The New Futures program operates at 3 apartment complexes here in Burien. And it's no surprise that the literal thousands of hours spent tutoring and offering out of school support on site to families at these complexes greatly helped students increase their knowledge of their school curriculum.
Do you have a question, Councilmember Mon?
Just wanted, just because I didn't hear you say this, but St. Vincent de Paul, I think I met with them 4 years ago,
Mhm.
maybe even 5, and their goal was to bring Central and do the program to Burien.
Mhm.
So I'm happy to say that they are operating, just seen them, and so they kept to their word. It's been a great organization here in the city, as far as making sure that people have access to, be able to get furniture for their homes at a reasonable rate. But I just wanted to say I was happy to see them. And then Girls Inc. of the PNW, that's great. I'd love to meet this group. Do they have an office here in Burien, No? The
They
Girls
operate-
Inc.?
They operate out of
Out of
Sherwood.
Sherwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. If I can get some information, then I'd like to. visit.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And just to add something to the St. Vincent de Paul Central Rendu program, that's on top of the operational things they do, just their normal basic operational. They've got their brick and mortar store on First Avenue. And there are 3 Catholic churches in Burien or surrounding Burien that do St. Vincent de Paul collections and run St. Vincent de Paul rent assistance, food, utility assistance, and mattress programs. So I think that's important to highlight too, that they're an excellent partner. A lot of organic charity work going on right there too, so.
Yeah, we fund that, the last program that you talked about, the rent and utility assistance program, we fund out of human services as well. We just didn't call attention to that particular one, but I mean, we would love to call attention to every one of our
Right.
agencies
No, I just
here.
wanted to add that that's the
Yeah,
Central
yeah.
Rendu's on top of.
Amazing,
like,
right?
Already stuff they're doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, the important part about what you just raised too is that agencies apply to us for a specific program. But when you enter a program with an agency, you have access to their other programs as well. We might not be providing funding to it, but it doesn't mean that you don't have access to those other programs that just like you mentioned. So when Central Rendu is working with a family, they know the rent and utility assistance is out there and they connect with that other program. So, yeah, I just think it's not that you sign up for one thing and don't get access to the other things. So thanks for bringing that up.
I think we
Next.
can go to the next slide.
So where are we to date? This is your glimpse of your 2025-26 funding cycle for the commission and for our work. This slide gives you an overview of that RFP timeline and process for both our general fund and our CDBG funding. And so to date, council has approved our results and priorities on January 29th of 2024. The application did open on March 4th. An email blast to previously funded organizations has gone out multiple times by Sherwin app and by us, and to others who have expressed interest on receiving information. To anyone that has ever said, we'd love to know more about funding for human services, we've kept a running list and have connected those folks to both sherwinapp.org, which has a wealth of information about all the cities that, in the 16 city consortium, and also to our website. We've held 2 hybrid technical assistance workshops where approximately 100 people attended, and that all the cities were there to provide technical assistance for folks interested in applying and how to navigate the application. And Anya and I have been working daily to meet with agencies that have application questions to help ensure that agencies feel supported and able to submit competitive applications. Next slide. So we're often asked why we've spread our funding across so many agencies. And I hope tonight gives you a glimpse into why that might be, that so many of these needs really intersect with each other and that one isn't any more important than the other. Certainly, pandemic recovery, wages not keeping pace with soaring costs of food, rent, and other basic needs makes funding human services vital. The demand has not slowed. And while we don't fully fund, as Anya said, any one program, agencies rely on our investments to leverage other funds and fund sources to enable them to serve more of our residents. We recently held a meeting with newly hired executive directors. And one of the things that they shared across the board with us was keep your funding flexible. So many fund sources say it can only be used for something specifically, and it doesn't allow them to be innovative or community really responsive to community needs. And so cities have been able to keep their funding flexible, and we have seen that it best reflects approaches and how they provide services to our community. Advocating for the growth of investment, or at the very least, stable funding at the county, state, and federal levels is so important to maintain this quality of service. And that's just critical work that we all need to be doing. We need to continue to look for grants and build intentional partnerships that bring resources to Burien. And we need to continue our efforts towards greater public awareness using multiple channels to make sure that our residents know about these great services available, how to access them in order to help our residents achieve self-sufficiency and participate and contribute to their community. And with that, we want to thank you for this opportunity to really give you what we think is a great overview of the work that happens in your division. We thank you for the opportunity to serve this community, and we'll take more questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Are there any questions, Councilmember Akey?
Thank you for the comprehensive presentation and for all of the work that you're doing both on the commissions and with all of the variety of organizations that you're working with. I know that that's not easy, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. I had a couple of questions. I've been getting to know more and more about the departments here within Burien and the other relationships that we have throughout King County. And so some of the funded programs, like some of the after school programs, the graffiti and or mural programs, some of that is like Parks and Rec has programs that they're funding in after school. There's graffiti and mural programs that the Economic Development Department and Parks and Rec are working on. How do you guys work together to be able to best utilize the funds and the resources that you have in your awareness and knowledge of what everyone else is doing and how you're moving forward with that funding and
Great, yeah.
programs, I guess?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think we work interdepartmentally quite a bit with really so few staff in each department. We're kind of necessarily compelled to do that, which is great. That's one of the things while it's challenging, it's also an opportunity to really work more collaboratively. So we often talk with Casey about rec programming, with the partnerships that we have. We introduce them as they're meeting young people. They refer into the programs. And same with our other commissions and our other departments. We can do more of that though. And as we're making these partnerships happen and murals are happening, we want to make sure that, you know, the other departments are aware that this resource is available. This particular resource happens to work with young people and local artists. They contract local artists to work alongside as young people as apprenticeships. And so that's not always the right fit for a certain mural, but in other cases it is. So we try to at least share the information and make those connections, not only with other departments, but with other providers. So we, along with CTAC and Tukwila, hold a joint provider meeting for all the agencies that we fund so that they can partner also and really be resources to each other. We try to do the same within our departments as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I know like even Burien Creative District is looking at funding murals or the work that Recology is supposed to be doing for graffiti removal, or, you know, like there's a lot of different pieces and parts and everybody's kind of doing something. And I'm just, you know, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things
Moving
that I'm like, wow,
pieces.
there's so many different organizations doing similar but not the same stuff, and making sure that we're not duplicating that, but also taking advantage of all of this fun. So thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions? Councilmember Moore?
Well, and Councilmember Ake took my primary question, so, but I have backup questions as always. The first one is, I noticed on the pie chart, it looked like almost half of the referrals that we get had to do either with rental assistance or with utilities assistance. Just, and I know it's hard to tell, but is that because that's who knows about that referral process? Or do you think that that reflects kind of what the biggest need is in our city? Or are there other people, other needs that somebody just isn't aware of that referral process, or maybe is in crisis and not able to use the referral process?
I'd say both, actually. I mean, I think that there's no, I think it's no surprise, I guess, to us that given the rising rents occurring here in Burien, that people are struggling to make ends meet. We're hearing about folks doubling up, or we're hearing about folks that just are behind. They can't get caught up. And so, so I just think that, rising costs of food make, you know, tough decisions for families about rent versus food versus medications. It's hard on fixed income for our seniors. So I do think that those needs are a reality. I also think that, we get needs around food as well, but I think, having 2 food banks that particularly fund, or that are funded through us, but also serve Burien is super helpful. And particularly these food banks that are so responsive to the community, both culturally, trying to make the experience as accessible as possible. I think that that's super helpful. Funding Meals on Wheels for people that have medical issues, seniors that are having needs. Like, we fund perhaps a broader base of organizations that meet those needs. And we acknowledge that we can always do better at getting the word out about the availability of services.
So you've been doing this for a little while, but it sounds like really building our record, our ability to get a good picture of what's going on. But would you say that the number of people asking for that type of assistance, the rent and utilities, is that going up proportional over time?
I mean, we had a pandemic in there too, so, which is interesting because we also had, you know, a moratorium, for a while as well, which was super helpful. And when that sunset, we saw a huge increase happening for our agencies on evictions and on a need for rent. But we're still hearing, right now, I'd say utility bills is really the bigger one. Like, people stopped sort of paying on utilities and to get past rent paid, and now they're in arrears on utilities and facing shut-off notices. So I would say that, you know, all of us going to a grocery store know what's happened and the rising costs of food. So those are all things that are impinging on the ability to pay those basic needs. So I can just say that the majority of calls that Anya and I face, and people walking in with folks that are, you know, barely hanging on, are really around rent, utilities, the need to pay for medications, the need to pay for food. And childcare. Childcare is super expensive.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question about the utility?
Mhm.
So we have our utility tax assistance program. Do you know, or would that be a better question for Eric, about how many people have used the utility tax assistance program last year?
That doesn't come through our office, so I'm not sure, and that's a
Probably Eric.
rebate program.
Yeah,
And utility companies have payment plans and things like that. We're just finding that interestingly enough, we see it seems to ebb and it seems to I don't know what the right word is, ebb and flow a little bit of where folks are suddenly there's like this rash of shut off notices for, and maybe someone only owes, when I say only, but because we've seen arrears of thousands, but might owe $150 and they have a shut off notice. Versus, you know, during the pandemic or shortly after, we saw arrearages, you know, that were in the thousands.
Right.
So I think it's also a function of how our utility companies are expecting payment
Right.
and when.
I'd just be curious to, so I guess that's an Adolfo question about,
Mm.
curious to know how many people have utilized our utility tax assistance program last year. And then maybe also how many folks in Burien have utilized, Seattle City Light and PSE specific, utility assistance programs too.
You could search for that information and provide it.
And that'd be great. Any other questions to Human Services? Councilmember Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Just want to make sure the ask is for what data, just,
Data around how many individuals or families or households, however we measure it, utilized our city-specific utility tax assistance program in 2023. Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Garcia?
thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank you, all of you, staff and commissioners. I'm an ardent believer in that human services is the most critical, important department of a health of a city. Because everything you do really impacts all the issues that we've been dealing with on the council. From homelessness to crime, it all gets started at a root cause that you all are trying to address. So I thank you as someone who benefited from after-school programs, someone that benefited from food assistance programs growing up. This department is really very critical to the future of our city. And I hope that we do you justice when we look at budgeting and we start to compare how much we budget towards human services versus the rest of the needs of the city. But thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? So I'll just wrap that up then by saying, I think this was an extremely important presentation for the time we're in right now in the city of Burien, and making sure that folks in the wider region understand that we are working hard to address a lot of the foundational concerns around needs in the community. And that $2.9 million is a significant amount of money for a city the size of Burien and the size of our budget. And certainly we're going to work to do as much as we can to expand our human services outreach as we grow our resource allocation. So thank you so much for presenting that today. And I'll go into some other stuff in the council reports, like what we did today, Colleen, but thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.